Imagine stepping up to an escalator in a busy subway station, right? Like a machine you've ridden a million times before.
Oh, yeah. You know exactly how the drill works.
Exactly. You know the social contract. You step onto the bottom tread, you hold the handrail, and the system just, steadily carries you up to the next floor.
Right. It does the work for you.
But today, you walk up to it, and those bottom three steps are just, well, they're completely gone.
Wow.
Yeah. The middle of the escalator is still moving. Like you can see people up there rising comfortably toward the top, but you are just standing at the bottom, looking down into this exposed machinery, trying to figure out how to leap up to a moving step that is entirely out of your reach.
Which is pretty much an impossible jump for most people.
It is. And that mechanism, that broken entry point, is exactly what the Canadian job market feels like for thousands of people right now.
Yeah, it really does.
Welcome to another deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a massive economic shockwave that is actively rewriting the rules for anyone trying to build a career. We are looking at the February 2026 Canadian Jobs Report.
And I have to say, it is a profound shift in the data. We aren't just looking at a cyclical dip where hiring slows down for a quarter or something.
Right.
We are looking at a structural earthquake in how companies operate, who they hire, and honestly, who they are permanently leaving behind.
Yeah, to really understand the mechanics of this, we've pulled together a huge stack of sources to help you navigate the chaos.
Lots of ground to cover today.
So much. We're looking at major financial reporting from BNN, Bloomberg, Global News, and CTV. We are weaving in some really fascinating demographic and labor analysis from immigration.ca. And crucially, to make sure we don't just get lost in all the spreadsheets and high-level math, we have on-the-ground, real-world student journalism from Toronto Metropolitan University's publication, On the Record.
Which is so important to get that street-level view.
Absolutely. Because our mission today is to look past those terrifying headlines and understand the actual hidden mechanisms at play here. We want to figure out the exact why behind this violent shift.
Yeah, identify who is actually winning and losing right now.
Right. And most importantly, figure out what this all means for you, whether you are, making hiring decisions, searching for a job yourself, or just trying to protect your livelihood in a totally unpredictable economy.
Because a headline number is just a symptom, right? To actually protect yourself, you need to understand the underlying disease. You have to know how the gears are turning.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can really get to the human element, we have to look at the raw math of this February report, which is it's staggering.
It really is.
Heading into the month, the general consensus among economists was that Canada would quietly add about 10,000 jobs. Like a modest gain.
A standard quiet month.
Exactly. But instead, the economy lost 84,000 jobs.
Just a massive swing.
And when you look at the breakdown, it's even heavier. Over 100,000 full-time roles simply vanished.
Wow.
Yeah, offset only slightly by some part-time gains. And the overall unemployment rate spiked up to 6.7%.
Which caught everyone off guard.
Totally. Travis O'Rourke, the president of the recruitment agency Hayes, he actually referred to it as a bloodbath.
That's a strong word for an economist to use.
Right. And Shannon Terrell from NerdWallet called it a gut punch, pointing out that companies aren't just pausing hiring, they're actively shrinking their footprints.
Actively contracting, yeah.
So my first question is about the models themselves. Economists missed the mark by nearly 100,000 jobs. How does a professional forecasting model break down that badly?
Well, it comes down to how economic models process overlapping real-time shocks.
Okay.
A standard forecasting model relies heavily on historical data and lag indicators. It basically assumes the economy moves in a relatively linear fashion.
Sure, drawing a straight line from past trends.
Exactly. But right now, the Canadian market isn't dealing with a linear slowdown. It is dealing with a perfect storm of structural changes colliding with massive geopolitical wildcards.
Wildcards, like the U.S. tariffs.
Spot on. You have this ongoing U.S. trade war and these heavy border tariffs. And for months, many Canadian businesses that are exposed to those tariffs were in this sort of wait-and-see holding pattern.
Hoping it would just blow over.
Right. But eventually, the margins just disappear. Suddenly, a manufacturing or a wholesale company flips from holding steady to realizing, oh, wow, we need to cut 10% of our workforce by Friday just to make payroll.
That fast.
That fast. But then you layer on the second massive shock, which is the conflict in the Middle East involving Iran.
Which hits oil prices.
Exactly. That geopolitical crisis has caused global oil prices to just spike. So think about it. If you are a logistics company, you are suddenly hit by reduced export demand because of the U.S. tariffs, right? While at the exact same time, your daily operating costs like fuel, energy, supply chain logistics are skyrocketing.
So you squeeze from both sides.
Squeezed from both sides, which forces an immediate, violent contraction. Gradual forecasting models just cannot compute the speed at which business owners hit the panic button when they get hit by dual macro shocks like that.
Okay, that makes total sense from the business side. But let's look at the policy side for a second.
Sure.
Because if the economy is tanking this fast and we are bleeding 84,000 jobs outside of like a pandemic scenario, doesn't the Bank of Canada have to step in?
You'd think they'd have to do something, yeah?
Right, because they held the benchmark interest rate at 2.25% back in January. If the labor market is basically collapsing, doesn't the central bank have to cut rates next Wednesday? Like, don't they have to throw the economy a life raft to stimulate borrowing?
Well, you would naturally assume that, but this specific scenario is the absolute nightmare for any central bank.
Really? Why?
Because it is the textbook definition of stagflation. Stagnant economic growth combined with high inflation.
Oh, right, because of the oil.
Exactly. Yes, the labor market is shrinking rapidly, which usually demands an interest rate cut to make money cheaper and encourage companies to hire. But we have to look at that Iran oil spike again.
Because energy costs affect everything.
Literally everything. Food, transportation, manufacturing. It is highly inflationary. So if the Bank of Canada cuts interest rates right now, making borrowing cheaper, they risk driving consumer demand up right as supply chain costs are peaking.
Oh, wow. So they just be throwing gas on the inflation fire.
Exactly. Financial markets are currently pricing in a 90% chance that the bank holds rates steady again, despite the job losses.
Wow, even with 84,000 lost jobs.
Yeah, because they are terrified that if inflation escapes their grasp, the long-term damage will be far, far worse than a bad quarter of unemployment. They are essentially trapped.
Man, so the central bank is paralyzed and businesses are slashing overhead.
That's the reality.
Yeah. Let's bring this down to the street level for the person listening right now. If you were trying to break into the workforce, why do these specific job losses feel so impenetrable?
It's a great question.
Because, returning to that escalator analogy, it isn't just that the escalator is moving slower, right? The actual structure of the corporate ladder has changed.
Fundamentally changed.
Travis O'Rourke points out that the job market used to be shaped like a pyramid. It was incredibly wide at the bottom, offering this massive volume of entry-level positions.
Lots of room to get your foot in the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now, he says the market has turned into a diamond. It is wide and heavy in the middle, narrow at the top, and incredibly narrow at the bottom. The entry-level foundation is just disappearing.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism driving that shift from a pyramid to a diamond.
Okay, what is it?
It's not just a temporary reaction to tariffs or oil prices. It is permanent technological displacement. The primary driver of this missing bottom tier is the rapid integration of artificial intelligence.
Okay, so how exactly is AI deleting that bottom tier in real time, like day to day?
Well, think about the traditional function of a junior entry-level employee in a white-collar environment.
Or do the grunt work?
Exactly. For decades, companies hired recent graduates to handle high-volume, low-complexity tasks. Basic data processing, initial code reviews, formatting slide decks, drafting vendor emails, or just summarizing long reports.
The stuff nobody else wants to do.
Right. But today, a generative AI model can accomplish those exact tasks instantly, and for a fraction of the cost.
So why hire the junior at all?
Precisely. So when companies face the immense financial pressures we just discussed, like shrinking margins from tariffs and energy costs, they look at their org charts.
And they realize they can just cut the bottom.
They realize they can achieve significant savings by simply refusing to hire a new cohort of juniors. They rely on their experienced middle-tier employees, who are now armed with AI tools, to do the work that previously required 3 junior staff members.
Wow.
So that wide base of the pyramid is just no longer financially necessary.
Which leads directly to this massive demographic divide in who is actually absorbing the pain of this contraction.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the disappearance of the bottom of that diamond means the suffering is really sharply concentrated. Let's look at the data. In February, youth unemployment, specifically those between 15 and 24, spiked to 14.1%.
That is painfully high.
That single demographic lost 47,000 jobs in 1 month.
Wow. Over half the total losses.
Yeah. And our sources from Toronto Metropolitan University's On the Record provide this really stark look at the human toll. Like, they highlight Kyochi Tharmapalan. She's a first-year student who applied to over 100 jobs recently and remains completely shut out.
100 applications. That is exhausting.
And another student they interviewed, Matthew Tobias. He's been searching for part-time work for 2 solid years.
2 years.
2 years. They are caught in this agonizing paradox where a basic retail or service job now requires 2 to 3 years of previous experience.
Which is impossible if no one will hire you for your first job.
Right. But contrast their situation with the 55 and older demographic. While the youth lost 47,000 jobs, the 55-plus group actually saw an increase of 33,000 jobs.
That is a wild divergence.
And their unemployment rate dropped to an incredibly healthy 5.1%.
Yeah.
So how does an employer justify turning away a 19-year-old for a coffee shop job and hiring a 56-year-old instead?
It comes down to the concept of risk aversion and the hidden costs of onboarding.
Okay, unpack that.
In a booming economy, a company has the financial padding to invest, say, 6 months into training a new graduate. They can absorb the mistakes. But in a contraction, when every single dollar of margin is critical, employers become incredibly risk-averse.
So they just want a sure thing.
Exactly. They default to hoarding experienced talent. If a manager is running a tight shift, they want someone who understands customer service dynamics, reliability, and conflict resolution on day one.
You don't have the time to train.
They don't have the runway to hold someone's hand.
And I imagine the cost of living plays into why those older workers are even applying for those jobs in the first place, right?
Oh, precisely. The inflation we discussed earlier is severely eroding the purchasing power of fixed pensions and retirement savings.
So they have to go back to work?
Yes. Older workers are increasingly re-entering the workforce or delaying retirement entirely just to maintain their standard of living.
Wow.
So you have these highly experienced older workers taking positions further down the ladder, which creates a bottleneck that completely locks out the youth who are just trying to get their first break.
Man. And a crisis of this magnitude inevitably bleeds into the national psyche, right?
Of course it does.
And we are seeing a deeply fractured political conversation emerge from all this. Just looking at the public statements, the narratives are miles apart.
Oh, it depends entirely on who you ask.
Right. Prime Minister Mark Carney, speaking at a conference in Norway when the report dropped, he pointed almost entirely to the uncertainty surrounding the U.S. trade actions.
Deflecting to the external factors.
Exactly. But conversely, Conservative MP Garnet Genuis stated that the Liberal government's policies are actively failing Canadians and ignoring domestic solutions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a textbook example of how sudden economic anxiety accelerates political polarization.
And before we get into the public reaction, look, we need to be explicitly clear to you listening right now. We are not taking sides here.
Absolutely not.
Our goal is just to impartially report what is in the source material, to show you how different groups are processing this exact same shock.
We are just looking at the conversation, not endorsing it.
Right. And you can see that acceleration vividly in the comment sections of the source articles we reviewed. Depending on where you look, the blame shifts entirely based on ideological lines.
Oh, the comment sections are intense right now.
Very. We are seeing left-leaning commentary, heavily focused on the external macroeconomic factors, like arguing that the involuntary U.S. trade war is the primary culprit, and that no domestic government can magically deflect a massive tariff assault from the world's largest economy.
Which is a fair point on the macro scale.
But on the flip side, right-leaning commentary points the finger strictly inward. They are furious with government regulation, high taxes, and what they term elbows-up socialist policies. They see those as the true job killers.
Right, focusing on domestic control.
And a significant portion of this commentary also focuses heavily on current immigration targets, arguing that bringing in high numbers of newcomers during an active economic contraction unfairly suppresses wages and drives up housing costs.
The mechanism at play here is just basic human nature in the face of scarcity.
What do you mean?
Well, when the economy is stable and people feel secure in their livelihoods, political debates allow for nuance, you know?
People have the patience for complexity.
Exactly. But when 84,000 jobs vanish in a single month, fear takes over. In environments of financial threat, people demand a singular, clear culprit to direct their anger toward.
They need a villain.
They do. For some, the culprit is the external threat of foreign tariffs. For others, it is internal taxation and immigration. The objective reality is that multiple complex factors are all colliding at once.
The complexity isn't comforting.
Exactly. Complexity is very rarely satisfying when you can't pay your rent.
Speaking of the public conversation around immigration, we really need to look at the actual demographic math here. Because the collision between population growth and job creation is stark in these reports.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle.
To borrow an analogy from one of our sources, Canada's economy is functioning like a stagnant pond right now. The water level isn't rising. Eric Kam, he's an economics professor at TMU, he points out that Canada's real GDP growth has essentially flatlined.
Right, the pie isn't getting any bigger.
The overall economic output isn't expanding, yet we are pumping 500,000 new fish into that pond every single year through immigration. And over half of those newcomers are settling right in the Greater Toronto area. So what does this all mean? Like, if the corporate entry-level jobs are gone and the overall economy isn't growing, where do these newcomers actually find work to survive?
Well, the data shows they're being pushed to the absolute fringes of the labor market, specifically into the gig economy.
Right. The forces note that 667,000 Canadians are currently doing digital platform work.
Yeah.
Driving for ride shares, delivering food, freelance tasks.
A huge number.
But the demographic breakdown is what's wild. 8% of recent immigrants are relying on gig work compared to only 1.5% of Canadian-born workers.
That is a massive disparity.
It is. And at the same time, the Ontario Works caseload, which is the provincial social assistance program, is hitting 101,000 people just in Toronto. And the city expects those numbers to climb even higher in the second half of the year.
Yeah, the social safety net is straining.
So what does this all mean for, say, a skilled professional newly arriving in Canada today?
It means the concept of the bridge job is breaking down entirely.
The bridge job.
Yeah, historically, the gig economy served a specific purpose for newcomers. It was a temporary bridge, like a way to generate immediate cash flow on a flexible schedule while they navigated the accreditation process to get a job in their actual profession, whether that's engineering or accounting.
Like a stepping stone.
Exactly. But because the white-collar entry points have been erased by AI, as we talked about, and corporate hiring is frozen by economic uncertainty, that bridge has turned into a permanent waiting room.
Boy, they just get stuck there.
They can't cross over. Employers are demanding hyper-specific local experience and local credentials because, frankly, they have the luxury of choosing from a massive pool of desperate applicants.
Because the diamond is so narrow at the bottom.
Right. When thousands of highly educated newcomers all log on to the exact same delivery apps simultaneously just to survive, the algorithms adjust, pay rates drop, and it becomes a trap rather than a stepping stone.
Man, that is a harsh reality to face.
It is.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because if you dig deep enough into this report,
Yeah.
past the massive top-line losses, there are distinct, highly lucrative opportunities for people who are willing to pivot.
Oh, absolutely. There are bright spots.
There are sectors that are actively starving for talent. Healthcare, for example, added 85,000 jobs over the past year.
Huge growth there.
Public administration and transportation also saw net gains. But the most glaring supply and demand mismatch in the country right now is in the skilled trades.
Yes. The trades are a totally different world right now.
The numbers are staggering. By 2028, 700,000 skilled trades workers are set to retire in Canada.
It's 1,100,000.
But the system is only graduating 75,000 new tradespeople per year. Hayes President Travis O'Rourke pointed out that filling this gap requires a massive cultural shift. He specifically noted that women currently make up only 7% of the trades.
Right, leaving a huge talent pool untapped.
He had this great quote. He said, "The jack of all trades needs to be a Jill of all trades."
I love that.
Yeah. Plus, there is some policy hope on the horizon here. The government announced a $35 billion investment in Arctic defense and infrastructure. And the massive CUSMA, which is the new NAFTA, that trade review deadline hits on July 1st.
And that July 1st deadline is crucial.
Why is that date so important?
Because trade renegotiations force manufacturing and logistics companies to pause hiring. They don't know what the new cross-border rules will be, so they wait.
Uncertainty freezes the market.
Exactly. Once that CUSMA deadline passes and the rules are actually set, you often see a coiled spring effect. Companies finally release capital and start a massive wave of spring and summer hiring.
Okay, that makes sense.
But going back to your broader point about the trades, This is where the modern job seeker has a massive advantage if they are willing to shift their perspective. The skilled trades represent a fundamentally AI-proof career path.
Because AI can't build a house.
Exactly. A generative language model cannot plumb a high-rise apartment building. It cannot wire the cooling systems for a new data center. It cannot weld a municipal pipeline.
We're going to push back on that a bit, though,
Sure.
because it is very easy on paper to say, just go become a plumber or electrician, right? But if you are a student listening to this, and you just spent 4 years and $40,000 earning a computer science or a marketing degree at TMU, being told to go strap on a tool belt feels like a massive step backward.
Oh, I'm sure it feels awful.
It feels like a failure. Is the pivot to the trades actually realistic for a demographic that has been told their entire lives that a university degree and a cubicle are the only safe paths to success?
It is an incredibly difficult psychological pivot, and the sunk cost fallacy of that $40,000 degree is very real. You want a return on that specific investment.
Right. You put the time in.
But the market doesn't care about the cultural prestige of a degree. It cares about supply and demand. If the entry-level corporate jobs are permanently gone, fighting for scraps at the bottom of the diamond is just a losing battle.
You're just beating your head against the wall.
Exactly. The reality is that the trades offer six-figure earning potential, paid apprenticeships where you literally earn while you learn, and unparalleled job security precisely because so few young people are entering the field.
Wow.
The stigma you mentioned is the exact reason the opportunity is so lucrative right now. Employers in the trades are desperate to train reliable workers, whereas corporate employers are looking for literally any excuse to screen you out.
It really is a complete inversion of how we were all taught the economy works.
It really is.
So to synthesize all of this for you listening, we are looking at an economy split into two parallel realities right now. On one side, it is a brutal contractionary environment for youth, recent university graduates, and anyone trying to secure a general white-collar entry-level job.
It's tough out there for them.
You are fighting against AI and a shrinking corporate footprint. But on the exact same day, in the exact same country, it's an incredible market for experienced older workers, for healthcare professionals, and for anyone willing to step into the massive void left by retiring skilled tradespeople.
The opportunities are there. They've just moved.
Exactly. The bottom steps of the escalator might be permanently dismantled, but there are entirely different staircases available if you know where to look.
And that leaves us with a critical long-term question to consider, like a systemic issue that goes far beyond one bad month of data.
Okay, what is it?
Well, if AI permanently eliminates the entry-level tier of the corporate world, how will the next generation of workers ever gain the practical, hands-on experience required to fill the middle and top tiers?
Oh, wow.
Right. If you cannot get a junior position to learn the ropes of an industry, how do you ever develop the judgment to become a mid-level manager?
Because you can't just skip straight to the middle.
Exactly. Are we quietly designing a future where the only path to a white-collar career requires an impossible leap?
That is a heavy, essential question to mull over as you navigate this rapidly shifting landscape. Because trying to jump up to a moving escalator when the bottom steps are gone isn't just exhausting. Eventually, people might just stop trying to jump at all.
Yeah, they might just walk away.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the sources. So stay curious, stay adaptable, and we will catch you on the next one.